Hello, my name is Skeltus, and I'm a Polish musician, economist, and a follower of Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. I support capitalism, free markets, free trade, free minds, and individual rights. And I have also been convicted of hate speech by the Polish court of law. This is my story. The story of how free speech is being suppressed in Poland. Enjoy.
In 2011, I recorded an album with my funk rock outfit called Biała Pięść, which means white fist. A controversial and outright rebellious imagery made to infuriate leftists and fascists alike. The logo of the band consisted of a fist on a black-yellow background, the colors of anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism. This, of course, was a shout-out to anarcho-communists and other scum who used the imagery of a clenched fist on their own red-black flags and so on. Here I simply was inspired by a picture on the internet with a white clenched fist and the sign capitalism. I thought it was a great concept, a revolutionary capitalism set against leftism, communism, fascism, with the full force of free markets. As for the cover of the album, I went a step ahead in controversiality. I used a World War II poster from Holland, depicting a Waffen-SS soldier on a black and yellow background. I photoshopped him and changed the SS runes into dollar signs, reading cash cash, Waffen cash cash, the armed divisions of capitalism. I entitled the album Capitalism, Stupid, referring to the famous slogan, "It's the economy, stupid," from the Clinton campaign. The music on the album was a bombastic funk rock with heavier tones delving into hardcore and even heavy metal, some sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers style, early Red Hot Chili Peppers, with my vocals being mostly aggressive rapping and melodic singing in reference. The topics being mostly about the struggle between freedom and statism, capitalism and communism, libertarians against leftists and fascists. The lyrics were vulgar, aggressive and full of swearing, poking fun at silly leftists and paying them no fucking respect whatsoever. They were also full of humor, black humor, if you know what I mean. The album acquired moderate cult status in the Polish libertarian underground, and later I basically forgot about it. I was involved in other projects. Until mid-2013, when I was summoned to police present as a witness in my own case. The penal code article the case was about propagating fascist or totalitarian political systems, because, in Poland it is forbidden. You can propagate soft communism, but not fascism. Well, I made a statement at the police station that my music has nothing to do whatsoever with fascism and is merely a political satire. The interesting fact is how the police actually got to me. One guy, who majored in sociology, a staunch leftist and a neurotic, Jakub Uliasz, remember this name, tipped police about me, calling me a far-right fascist radical who propagates violence against people through his music. He compared me to Anders Breivik. As he couldn't pinpoint any transgressions on my part, he could only deliver the internet address to my blog and to the bandcamp.com page of my funk rock outfit with the Waffen-SS man on the cover, which was enough for the police to investigate me. After my statement, the criminal justice machine started rolling. The district attorney office took over. I had to deliver all the lyrics to the album so they could actually read what I'm singing about. I repeated my statements. I said that I used controversial imagery to garner attention through the shock syndrome, just like the Slovenian industrial outfit Laibach does. But my goal is to satirize and laugh at totalitarian regimes. I thought that the case would be closed. Several months later, an article appeared in the main leftist newspaper, Gazeta Wyborcza, that the attorney office would be prosecuting me for hate speech. Namely, they found out that I was offending minorities in my songs. And this is a terrible crime, you know. The article mainly focused on one catchy phrase from my song, "Niggers, white whore, die," from one special song called "I Have No Words, I Have No Questions," a catchy Caribbean-style song about how Polish women abroad are so easy to seduce by men of color and men of other races, be it blacks in America or Middle Easterners in tourist paradises like in Egypt. Actually, the song was inspired not only by first-hand true stories, but also by several articles about Polish sex tourism in Poland's leading newspapers. The song was sung from the perspective of a jealous Polish man who got infuriated because of his girl betraying him with a black man while on work and travel in the United States and contracting HIV. By the way, a true story, a common story. So the explosive chorus containing the evil word nigger and the word whore, which has to shock many ordinary people who hear it for the first time. But it isn't that different from black rap, gangsta rap music, which I was greatly inspired by, as well as by the black hard rock band Body Count, which was full of such evil, racist words. It would seem that if you are white, you are forbidden from using racial slurs, even if those are shouted by lyrical subjects. So this was the essence of this article, hurrying me publicly and trying to destroy my reputation as some sort of a racist redneck. The prosecution soon followed. I was summoned as a suspect in the hate speech case and I gave my statements. Now this is beginning to be funny and scary at the same time. You have to realize, Polish Attorney General ordered its subordinates to chase hate crimes with great effort, and to achieve this, attorney officers were trained in the nuances of hate speech and in the evil of racist conspiracy. The organization responsible for the training was the notorious Nigdy Więcej, Never Again, anti-racist, far-left Antifa bunch of provocateurs led by now Professor Rafał Pankowski, a specialist in witch-hunting of evil extreme right-wing lunatics, which, by the way, includes classical liberals and libertarians. So the fun starts. The prosecutor who interrogated me asked me, pointing to my band's logo, if the white fist on the black and yellow background symbolized white supremacy and oppression against the black and yellow races. My fucking god! I couldn't resist to laugh, but I managed to explain that the color black means freedom and the color yellow or gold means capitalism and money. and the fist is the symbol of rebellion against enemies of freedom and capitalism in this context. Next, the font used to write the title of the album was considered Nazi. Yeah, exactly so, because the prosecutor noticed it was written in a Gothic script, so definitely a Nazi connection. Actually, it was not Gothic script at all. The real Gothic script was in fact used in Weimar Republic, and it's hard to blame everything Gothic on the Nazis in this regard. So I had a good laugh at that point, to the dismay of the prosecutor. Later we analyzed together 3 songs which were the reason for persecution. The aforementioned song about Polish women getting easily fucked by members of other races. Also, a song called Fuck the Leftist Fuckers, which is a great song about how the state encroaches free societies and enslaves them. The song had strong language and contained a line, "Fuck the leftist parasites in their mouths with an unwashed black cock." This line was considered hate speech by the prosecutor because it implied that black people do not wash their genitals, which is offensive, supposedly, and goes under penal code. Can you imagine? I laughed hard. The last song analyzed was entitled Neurotic Illusions, and it was a story about 3 different women, 3 different girls from different backgrounds getting brainwashed to accept various forms of statism. And of course it involved harsh language and sexual innuendos. In the 3rd verse, a woman called Esha, living on welfare with their bastard kids, marries a black immigrant and gets an increase in welfare payments. Remember, I wrote this song as fiction in 2010, recorded in 2011, while today, with the influx of so-called refugees, such a scenario is actually unfolding right before our eyes here in Europe. So the prosecutor considered the word bamboo I used, which is a popular sort of derogatory term for black people in Poland, as offensive hate speech, ready for prosecution. And I was also charged with offending Muslims on the basis of their religion, because in the song about sex tourism in Middle East, I used the word dirties, brudasy, which is a popular term for dark-skinned individuals in Poland. And I also dared to notice that under Islam, women have no rights. Das ist verboten, to even mention such horrible things, it seems. So under Polish penal code, I was a very guilty man. In spite of invoking Polish constitution, which supposedly guarantees freedom of artistic expression and freedom of speech, as well as freedom to express any views except totalitarian views, the case for me spreading totalitarian views fell earlier, so they went after the supposed racism, intolerance and hate speech, but in clear violation of constitution. You see, in Europe, constitutions are mere scraps of paper. Neither attorneys nor courts of law follow constitutions. They only follow penal code, even if it is in direct violation of constitutional principles. So, freedom of speech my ass. Me as an artist, I am not allowed to use words like nigger or bamboo in a song, even if the stylistic convention or genre of this music calls for such vocabulary. Remember, I was doing hardcore funk, inspired by gangsta rap and black hard rock group Body Count. I shouted a variety of insults at everyone, regardless of race or religion, mostly focused on leftists and fascists. But according to Polish justice system, I had to face up to 2 years in prison. 4 songs. I'm not kidding. After my initial interrogation, the prosecutor asked the notorious Rafał Pankowski, leader of Never Again, far-left organization, to serve as the expert witness in the preliminary proceedings. Pankowski wrote a horrible screed filled with psychotic, paranoid and unsubstantiated claims that I am some sort of Anders Breivik wannabe who dreams of a society where poor people are dying of hunger while the racial capitalist elite rules over them. I, of course, wrote an official protest to exclude Pankowski as an expert because of his personal and political bias, his academic fraudulency regarding the topics of racism, Nazism and far-right, and his association with far-left extremist groups. My motion was dismissed by the Attorney Office and later was also dismissed by the court. So, after several months, the first hearing took place. I refused to answer judge's questions and only answered my barrister's questions regarding my stance. I basically repeated what I stated during the interrogation. I underlined myself as an artist who used a variety of styles, both in music and in lyrics, and simply followed convention. That's why my music in this particular project sounded like it sounded. On the side note, I had also recorded sung poetry, epic metal, black metal, suicide pop, martial industrial, and neo-folk music in the past. The judge, Kamil Czyżewski, remember that name, happened to be a bold, short sadist who took an immediate dislike to me. So I guess the verdict probably was already set. As for formalities, the 3 songs serving as evidence were played back, and some people in the audience couldn't resist not to laugh. The judge immediately ordered them not to smile or get out of the courtroom. This is important, as we shall see later. The judge also played back a video interview from 2010 where I talk about music scene, etc., but the interviewer started asking me stuff about politics and I started my rant about Polish social security and how bankrupt it was and it is. And, at one point I invoked the then famous video from YouTube about the epic beard man. You know, this old guy taking care of a young black delinquent as a symbol of resistance against the criminal wave against old people. Of course, this had to do with the situation of old people when Social Security Fund dried up. The prosecutor thought that this interview showed me as a racist because I said, "Look how old people can beat up black men." Incredible, isn't it? How indoctrinated prosecutors can distort one's views to fit into their narration. I had to intervene and explain in court what the context of my words had actually been. So, a month later, next hearing took place. The guy who had tipped me to police was absent, despite being summoned as a sole witness in this case. The judge read aloud an interview with me from before the interrogation, which I gave to a pro-capitalist magazine in Poland. I explained there that I made music as a satire, political satire, and that personally I am a libertarian, a non-racist, and I am greatly inspired by black music like funk and blues. Well, anyway, several more hearings took place with no particular advancement. An expert witness from previous investigation was summoned, a philologist, and she confirmed that my lyrics spread hatred and aggression, and that under special circumstances such lyrics may prod some people to commit crimes, because an artist often becomes a guru figure for young minds. Finally, on the next hearing, the notorious Pankowski guy eventually arrived. He had eluded court summons, and the judge had even fined him for not explaining his absence. But now Pankowski came in all glory and splendor. The judge apparently had met him before, or they had talked on the phone, because now they both acted as if they were reciprocally filled in on my case. So the judge presented terrifying new evidence, a blog post from my blog where I described the proceedings in my case with fine detail, basically what I'm doing right now. This infuriated the judge because it was evident how stupid and irrational the prosecution was, and my blog post was making fun of them. The hearing proceeded to interrogate the expert witness Pankowski. He basically concluded that my views are radically and extremely far right, and that I actually mean what I sing, and somehow libertarianism and capitalism are also far-right extremisms connected to racism, exclusion, and eventual extermination of minority groups. Of course, the judge, being a complete ignoramus in the field of ideas, had no choice but to believe that fraud, and while being also ignorant what freedom of speech and expression really means, he convicted me of hate crime. Also, the prosecutor completely ridiculed himself, accusing me of being fascinated by America and the idea of freedom, while in Europe we have different standards. My concluding speech stressed my libertarian views and my independence as an artist and a creator. I accentuated that an artist cannot be threatened with law for using certain combination of words which may be deemed offensive, as it would be an attempt at blocking thoughts and the whole creative process. It would simply be a creeping totalitarianism, and this has to be resisted. My barrister also noticed that such a hate crime was a victimless crime because there were no actual offended people in the audience. So, the sentence was conviction for me, and I was convicted for 240 hours of slave labor doing community service. The newspaper reported the judge's tirade with a headline, "You hate everyone," as the judge concluded that my music is basically a hate manifesto towards everything and everyone, but especially against the state. Against tax collectors and custom officers, against students and Catholics, and so on. And it is the role of the criminal justice system to straighten out such anti-statist rebels like me. Can you imagine that? This fucking sick psychopath took on himself the role of thought police, the role of beating an individual into submission to the binding societal narrative of today. Well, you can be sure that every decent liberal libertarian person in Poland was infuriated by this sentence. Alas, not much was done about it regarding the penal code, as of yet. The judge also took notice that I, as supposedly unemployed person, have to learn how to behave and to learn discipline, so the slave labor I was sentenced to would achieve this goal. But the most obnoxious element of that guy's creed in the sentencing speech was calling my satirical art unfunny. Yeah. Your satire is unfunny. That's what he said. Despite threatening to throw out smiling people from the courtroom on the first hearing while playing my songs, this idiot claimed that my songs did not humor anyone. How ridiculous. Well, to finish up this story, I appealed the sentence, and the appeal court, despite upholding the conviction, suspended the punishment, so I was not forced to shovel snow in winter or rake leaves in public places. But in the end, I was charged with trial costs amounting to 4 times my average monthly earnings. Half of those costs was the reimbursement Mr. Pankowski took from the court for his worthless and fraudulent expert statement. So, after this, I am the martyr of free speech in Poland, the first one in such a case. As I said, most serious libertarians were appalled by what the court and prosecution did, but there were some people who were really happy that I was sentenced. Those people who are nothing more than human trash, they are scum of the earth, because they try to pass as libertarians when they understand shit about freedom of speech. Those people should be identified and ostracized thoroughly. I wish them painful death. Liberty ain't a tube cream. Liberty is not for pussies who get easily offended. Liberty is not for wimps who are afraid of themselves. Freedom of speech is the most basic, fundamental element of a free, civilized society. Whoever makes excuses to curb freedom of speech deserves to die. Governments which do not uphold absolute freedom of speech deserve to be destroyed.
Alright, if you have any further questions, I'm glad to answer them in another video. Long live freedom and capitalism. Tell hi.